Exactly. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I got some amazing guests tonight. I got Mr. Ty back again, the Spawnhunter here. We got Mark TinySpawny for the first time. Mark, it's a pleasure. And then, of course, we have the guest of the hour, Mr. Jimmy Palmiotti, artist, writer, a little bit of everything, Jimmy. Married to Amanda Connor, who is one of the most amazing artists as well. You are the dynamic duo in the industry, Jimmy, you and Amanda. It's a pleasure having you, and I cannot wait to jump into Deadly Tales of the
Well, I
Gunslinger.
thank you. I always thought Walt Simonson and Wheezy were the real dynamic duo in comics, but I think that's dating myself. And being a big fan of Walt definitely doesn't hurt that, you know.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'm getting in front of me. I'm getting some notes I made just in case you ask me real complicated questions. But you know, for this book, I had to write a Bible.
Yeah.
For Deadly Tales of the Gunslinger, I had to write a Bible that was 20-something pages long because it's a weird book to create because I have to kind of acknowledge everything Todd is doing.
Yeah.
Including upcoming things, right? So I'm actually learning things about the character as we go, and it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun to find out some stuff that I was like, "What?" You know, and you know, it helps having conversations with Todd writing this book because he has a lot to say about the character. And
yeah, I'm sure he does.
yeah.
Yes. Well, I will tell you, Mark, specifically Mark, man, huge Gunslinger fan. He'll be able to help you with any questions you might have, Jimmy. And of course, Ty is not too bad himself. Between these two guys, if you're ever looking for anything Spawn and can't find it, it's because they have it already.
That's okay. The guys, Todd's guys too. There, man. They know their stuff. You know.
Yeah.
It's just the little things because I have to pay attention to what Todd does in the regular book because he'll make a note about the past and I'll be like, oh, okay, you know, and run that. Like I said, I wrote a pretty extreme Bible, and presented it to him before I started the series, and so you guys know I'm on issue 11 right now. I'm writing issue 11.
Wow.
So we're a little, you know. It's funny because I go back and I look at. I just read number 2 and I was laughing. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that, you know, because I wrote it like a year ago. But there's so much more I learned, so it's definitely going to be a series that keeps growing and building on the characters. It's a little less Spawny than the Spawn books in a weird way, right? Because Todd asked me to ground the series, you know, really get in there and put it in real world and don't make it so, you know, make it just really you can smell the sweat on the guys, you know. You want it really just and that's where having Patrick Reynolds coming in, you know, with NCT doing the artwork on it. They're really you'll see like from issue 1 to 2 a big jump in the art and then it keeps going, you know. So anyway, lay it on me, guys.
Well, before we jump in, will we get an Amanda cover, you think?
I asked them and they said, yeah, down the line. She has to clear up her schedule. She's got the planes on the runway kind of work lined up, and so we will get one out of her eventually. Yes, for sure.
Nice. I love it. Well, Jimmy, man, we got some people in the chat. We want to say hi to. So, man. Daily Spawn Archive, Douglas, thanks for joining. We got some other people watching, probably on other channels. So questions come in, we'll pop them up there, Jimmy, for you, if that's okay. All positive. But yeah, let's jump right into Deadly Tales of the Gunslinger. It's been a blast to read this first issue. Me and Ty were on the last time when you had something else going on that we weren't aware of. So I apologize for that. It's probably lack of communication on my side, Jimmy.
No. It was if it was screw up, it was probably me. So
no.
Don't worry about it.
It was good. We had an amazing conversation about the title and a bunch of other things Spawn related, which was a lot of fun. And so it kind of got us prepared for today. But man, when we go back into the history of this character, I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, this I mean, Gunslinger has by far become probably one of the most popular of the Spawn universe, for sure. He looks dope as hell. I think Campbell, when he did some of his art, making him a little bit more slender and long, I really love that look to it. Mark, if I'm not mistaken, man, don't you have him tattooed on you somewhere?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I
Very cool.
I had this done by Jonathan Galapian at SpawnCon, and
Nice.
I said I'm going to get that made into a tattoo. So
Yeah,
I did.
looks awesome.
Yeah, I made sure to get Galapian's signature on there too. So
Nice.
Nice. Nobody's stealing credit.
That's great. It looks great. That's devotion.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's commitment to a character.
It is. I like it. I used to give tattoos in college. To pay for my college, I used to design them, and then I would do the black line, but I'd have other guys finish them with the color. I was not great with the color stuff, but I would do a bunch, and I would just to make extra money to pay for books and shit like that. But I was doing them in Brooklyn, in New York, so it was a bunch. It was like I would get a guy like come in. Hey, my girlfriend just left me. I need a tattoo, or I just wrecked my Trans Am. I need a tattoo. It's always like crazy stuff. We didn't get too many superheroes, sadly, back then. I got a lot of Tasmanian devils for some reason. I don't know why.
He was popular a while. Like everybody had a
was, man. There would be like it would either be him spitting or it'd be him playing drums, and I'd be like, I'm like, you don't need me to do that. That's one on the wall, you know. I only do original work, so. Yeah.
When's the last tattoo that you did, Jimmy?
In college. So we're talking about 1982. You know, it's a while. Yeah. It's been a while. I would not trust me to do one now, but I still will do artwork for one. If somebody needs a drawing, I'll like that. But I wouldn't. It's got to be easier now. I don't know. Back then, I used to have to do a stencil, the whole thing. It was just so much work. And guys want it in like weird places, you know. So it's like just not for me. Comics are a lot safer and cleaner.
Yeah,
it's definitely a more sterile job.
We might need a podcast just for that story.
You know, I was the guy that had no tattoos, that was doing tattoos, but I had a book of photos of the ones I did, so people would come and flip through the book and go, okay, you know what you're doing. But I could never. I almost one night I had the guys from Chaos Comics were all going to get Lady Death or something on their arms or something with the Chaos crew, and I almost went with them, and then I didn't have enough to drink that night, so then I backed out. So.
Well, Jimmy, I the last time we had you on the podcast, man, we were talking Jonah Hex, and that Jonah Hex run by you is Chef's Kiss, man. It's one of my favorite runs of DC. And when we heard that you were writing Deadly Tales, I could not think of a better person to take on this version of Gunslinger, and issue 1 has been a lot of fun. I thought maybe we could just kind of jump in to the actual issue and talk a little bit about it. And then I would love, maybe we could start off, and guys jump in too, but maybe you could kind of start off on how you've gone about kind of the history of Gunslinger. We know in issue 119, we got a panel, 174 and 175. We really got into his story a little bit. So we have a little bit of this history. Did you kind of go back? And I'm sure Todd gave you directions on where to kind of get a lot of your background. And then we also have some questions about Winston versus Javier that I hope you can answer too.
Okay. So you guys know that there were like these short stories that were done in the oldest, in some of the Spawn issues, the first appearance of Gunslinger. And then there's another one where he's the gunslinger and he has a thing in a bar where he hands a kid a knife, and there's all that kind of stuff was really confusing to me when they hired me, because I was like, okay, so who is this, and then who is that guy, and then who is this person in the future? Oh, wait a minute, they changed the names, and they did, so there was a lot of like I'm scratching my head. Thomas Healy, thank God Thomas was there. I was like, Thomas, wait a minute, I don't get who is this guy if this guy's that guy. So I went back and read everything, and then I figured when I started writing issue 1, I called up the guys and I said, listen, I need more pages, because I need to retell some of the stuff you did already. I need to retell that. I said, because if somebody's picking this up for the first time, they're going to have no clue what this is. And I said, even though there is a lot of mystery in the first issue, there is still the linear parts that Todd told already in there. So the idea that the guys get him and they drag him with the horses and he turns into, I said, so I realized that was the middle part of a story. And I said, I kind of have to tell a little bit before story, a little after. And then I did this thing in the book. There's 2 pages with these four panels on each of the character's life. We see it. I think I use it in like satisfaction, anxiety, appreciation, love. I kind of did these little photos of his past, the gunslinger's past, that are very meaningful. When you get 10 issues in, or when you get 20 issues in, some of these are going to pop up. Actually, issue 2, the appreciation one, actually pops up in issue 2. So there's a lot of going back and forth in this story. So not everything's laid out. Even this issue, if you read it in a linear fashion, until you got to the end, it was probably a little bit confusing. And it's because I, too, have to deal with the fact that this is an established character, that every time Todd writes a new story, he kind of does this pullback, like this and that. And I have to kind of fit it into the bio, because I'm chasing Todd on this book, in a way, right? So what I had to do with Tobias, with the main character, with Gunslinger, is I had to say, okay, here's his whole lifeline, and that's what my Bible is. Here's his whole life. Here's where his grandparents came from, his parents came from. Here's what happened to his mom. Here's what happened to his dad. Here's what happened to his sister, which is a key thing in the series, regular series. Here's how he got to here, and then here he is today, which is the book I'm writing. This book is The Deadly Tales of Gunslinger, is the first days of this gunslinger's life, as the gunslinger. This is the first. And honestly, by 10th issue, it's still only a couple of weeks or almost a month. It moves slow because there's a lot of stuff going on. And just because he became Gunslinger doesn't mean the history of him. And there you go, TinySpawny. I'm going to call you by your name there. Those are snapshots of things to come. Okay, in the series, and the one by the train station is in the second issue. But there's a panel for you guys, the diehard guys. You'll understand this. The second panel, that's called Anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
That is actually in one of the issues, the old issues, where the kid is in a bar with the spawn. Right. Okay. So there are clues here, and I drop them as we go in the series. But Todd McFarlane, and Thomas had the conversation with me. They said, we want you to write this book. You know what you're doing with a Western. I want to know that you can stay on this for a long while. And I said, yeah. I said, I did around 120 issues of Jonah Hex. I've done 125 Harleys. I know how to stay on a book for a while. He goes, okay, because there's going to be a lot of information going down. And he goes, I need somebody that's going to keep the consistency of the character for a long time. So for the people that hate what I did, you stuck with me. And for the people that like it, well, then there is a long-term plan. But, the saying is, the best part of the trip is the trip. So we know in the modern book that he goes into the future and he has his adventures there. This is not about that. This is about what made the guy that we see and how he starts learning about his powers. And again, in the book, he's being manipulated into Tobias is being manipulated into things happening to him in this book for a reason. It's like a test and then like a buildup of power. So there's a lot going on, and we unfold it as we go. We unfold it with each issue, and yet we're following them. I mean, the second issue is like, it's Gunslinger in a whorehouse is the best way I can describe the second issue. It's crazy, and there's a reason for it. And it's like every issue he's having this adventure, but I also try to work in flashbacks. So the second issue does have a scene where he was when he's when he was younger with his brother, with his sister, him and his sister and a mom and father. So we want to get to know, see where this guy came from and why eventually he gets picked to be Gunslinger. And
Jimmy, did
you know,
you just tell us his name? Because it's
maybe
not in the
not.
first issue.
What's that?
It's not in the first issue.
It might not be in any issue. We can ignore that.
Okay. Scratch that. Let's scratch that, because I was like, wait a minute.
I will say
Wait a
this. So the characters have a lot of names they go under.
Okay.
And we'll learn why. So even if I said his name, it's not going to matter in some level, because there is a thing that happens with this character.
Okay. Well, I realized, as I was reading the issue, the only name he ever gives, he says, "I'm nobody." So I'm like,
yes.
Who? Because I'm trying to figure out, is this Jeremy Winston? It's not Javi, because the Gunslinger is embodied in this Javi guy in the future. So I'm like, who is this?
Right.
So
when he says he's nobody, it's him, because it's not the only name. He's been under different names.
Okay.
And we'll catch you up with that. So there's going to be a lot of, and again, what Todd told me, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. So this goes to that, and that goes to that, and that goes to that. He goes, yes. And he goes, it's going to be less about what his real name is. It's going to be more about who he really is, because the names are, you can go, you guys know, you can get on a plane and go to another town, and you can be Bob all night long, also, if you're running away from stuff in the past, you kind of want to start anew. Now, the first issue, though, I had to make it so if you never read a Gunslinger Spawn, you can pick this comic up and somewhat figure it out. I don't want you to fully figure it out, because you can't, because pieces fall into place. There is a bigger scope to things. There is a bigger plan. Things do make sense. Shit will go sideways once in a while, because I have to follow what Todd's doing. And, Todd's the boss, man, so he has this character. I just learned, something about the character recently by reading the newer books. And I was like, well, thank God I didn't hit on that yet, because, what I mean? So, but that's the, I don't have I have a direct line into Todd's brain, but that's a big place. That's an arena. Yeah. And I'm a guy with a cheap seat all the way up in the, who's trying to keep moving down every time nobody's looking. I'm trying to move to a better seat down there. But I do have a grasp of the character. My main job is to kind of tell Western tales with this character. So when we do get out of the maybe the 7th or 8th issue, it's going to be less about giving you clues and all this stuff, and more about you following who the guy is, and what he's doing, because you can get too wrapped up with that, and that slows down the storytelling. It's to have a flashback and to push backwards all the time is okay when it's appropriate and it means something in the story, but to do it for the sake of trying to give people a little more, we got to get to know who this guy is, and you're going to see a point where you start to understand that he's winging it. He doesn't understand why the wolves are there. He doesn't get why he's healing the way he's healing. He doesn't, even the clothing he wears. I mean, I have a scene later on where he's actually dealing with the clothing he's wearing. He's like, well, why can't I do this? And why can't I do that? And it's part of him discovering who he is. So so it's not a quick story. It's not something I did in 6 issues, especially when Todd tells me to keep writing this thing for a couple of years. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have some fun here, but I'm also going to push the envelope, because I know that the time sequence in history, it's after the Civil War. I know that I'm so familiar with that history of the West, and how people were, the towns in the West, and why the towns aren't there anymore. And it's fun to work it in with the Spawn characters, and eventually we get to that, and it starts intermingling a lot more. But initially, this is a hardcore Western that has a lot of backstory, and the diehard Spawn people will grab some of the stuff quicker than the new readers will. But that's the fun of comics, right? Now you got to go with the regular book.
Yeah.
And the other book. Jimmy, I know I follow you on all your social channels, so I know that you're a big Western fan, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I had to ask you, have you had a chance to watch a TV show called American Primeval? Because I read Deadly Tales of the Gunslinger when it came out, and I think this show came out just recently,
Yeah.
and I felt like that grittiness, that violence, that brutality of the TV show, you're practically showing that on issue one of the Deadly Tales. So as a fellow Western
Yeah, I
fan,
haven't
I
seen it.
really
I haven't
appreciate
seen it
that.
yet. So around my house, because with Amanda there, we have to watch things in a linear fashion, right? So we finished up like what was it, 1883, and then we
Hmm.
did 19, what is it, 28 or I don't know,
Yeah.
whatever it was. So we watched all those. We just finished some other series we were watching, and then we just watched the last. It's not called Wool. It's called Silo, right? We watched that on Apple, which is. Have you guys seen that yet?
No, I heard it's
I'm
good.
in the middle of season 2.
Okay, yeah. So season 2 almost. I think it just wrapped up, right?
Okay, yeah,
Um,
I'm just now getting through it.
yeah, and that I actually did an adaptation of that years ago. That book. I wrote the adaptation with Hugh Howey and Justin Gray, and we did that. So I'm watching the show, and I'm like, oh, I remember that scene. We put that in the book, you know. But I completely forgot. I completely forgot all the cliffhangers, which was great to watch it. But I just heard about that Western show, so that'll be on my list of things to see. You know, I'm trying. You know, it's funny because there's a scene in issue 2 that made me you guys will laugh out loud when you see it because it's the gunslinger being really a bit of a monster for a second. Um, and I was laughing out loud when I wrote it because I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna get some crap for this," and like nobody blinked up at you know in Todd's cruise. Nobody blinked, and I was like, and I was laughing. I'm like going, "Wow, what can I can get away with a lot of stuff on this." And I noticed there's like in one of the panels there's a little nudity, and I was like, I didn't know we can get away with that, and there it is in there. And then there's just a really violent, horrible scene in the second issue that I was laughing out loud when I got the artwork from Patrick. I was like, oh my god! I'm like, you think they're gonna leave this in here? And he's just laughing. He's like,
Mm-mm.
he goes, well, I did what you wrote, and I'm like, no, it looks great, but it doesn't have a mature audiences thing on it. I guess okay, you know.
If then yeah, you haven't checked out the you said you didn't know nudity was allowed. The latest issue of Violator is I was like, how did this get published?
I've been catching up on the trades,
Okay.
Yeah.
you know.
But
And,
the Violator,
Yeah.
well, it is called Violator. I mean, if
yeah,
it, you
it's
know,
pretty spicy.
if it was called ice cream cone, I wouldn't see it coming. But when you call
Right.
something Violator, I think there's something about that. But like I said, that, you know, for me, the joy of doing this is I'm so happy that, you know, the guys Todd and Thomas thought of me for this because honestly, I got offered some stuff at DC that I felt didn't fit. Like it just didn't fit. It was nice that they offered me the thing, the couple of things, and it just didn't fit for me. And I hate the idea of doing something I'm not passionate about. So I kind of
Hmm.
say no to it. I could use the money, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm not into it. So I didn't do it. It's funny because I took on 2 other weird projects and people are going to go, why are you doing that? And I have to explain to them like, well, because they're both fun
Yeah.
for me. Like they're both like, they're going to challenge me a little bit. But when they came up, when it was Thomas came to me in New York Comic Con, and he said, you know, he introduced himself, and he said, how do you feel about writing a Western for Todd? And I was like, I feel very nice about it. I said, I know Todd for how many years, and I said, I would love to. What is it? And he goes, well, it's Gunslinger, but it would be in the past, and you would do like a Western version of it. And I said, so it's not a flashback. It's like it's just the story. My story takes place in the past. He's like, yeah, and I'm like, yeah, I could do that. I said, I don't want to do like a flashback, so I want to do it as if it's happening right as you're reading it. You know, which is very important for me. Not everything is colored brown. You know, like when sometimes when they do a Western, it's like everything's sepia, and I'm like, okay, but you know, we can go back in time, and I guarantee you, not everything's sepia. You know, It's a go-to in comics, isn't it? Like if it's in the past, we're gonna make it two-tone. And I always felt like not Valiant, Vertigo comics did that. Like, oh, it's horror. We're just gonna have two colors. And I was like, no, no, no. This is still a colorful world, but blood should be red and the sky should be blue, and and the girl's skin should be, that beautiful hue, warm hue, and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, so you guys, keep hitting me with questions. I'm open here. Anything you want to ask? Anything else?
Well, due to the timeline, Jimmy, of where this takes place, are you going to add other elements that were happening during that time frame that Gunslinger might bump into? Maybe people in history during that time frame? Are you thinking of it like that, or is it going to have its own world? And you're not going to really touch what really took place during that time frame?
Well, the Spawn universe has a lot to do with some of the stuff coming up, right? That the characters that were alive and around back then, they're almost in the book already. They're just not in frame.
Yeah.
There's a manipulation going on, and that is like this, and there's people pulling strings around him. We see the sheriff in the beginning. We see him morph into something. You see a guy come and he morphs into another character, and by the end, that character stays for a little bit because it's sort of like, it's sort of like part of the process of him turning into Gunslinger is that they want to see how good he's at. How good he is at this gig, and that they pick the right person, right? And it's in this Spawn lore. There's a lot, there's a lot there, and but I also don't want to complicate it too much with that because there is a lot of crazy crap going on in that world that we don't even need those characters on some level. There's so much stuff going on. There's a reason ghost towns are ghost towns, and I show you why at some point in the story, why some towns just don't need to exist anymore. And then we have some other stories. There's some characters that Gunslinger has a history with that it's not a good history, but it's a history that appear in the book later on. So there is a kind of, at least I'm writing issue 11 and then laying out 12, and there is a little bit of a Tombstone feel for a little bit of it because he gets involved in some other people's garbage, and then he has to step up. But tone wise, I'm keeping to the fact that it's kind of a frightening and dangerous world he's in, and there's a lot of darkness in this character's life, and in a way, everywhere he goes, he's almost attracting this stuff that come out of the woodwork wherever he shows up. This is a character that before he turned into the Gunslinger, he didn't see he only saw his version of the world. It's sort of like it's like Men in Black in a weird way, right? Like, once they show Will Smith that there's aliens everywhere, all of a sudden they're there, and in the Spawn universe, the same thing. It's like this world, it's kind of the Todd's universe kind of like stays right to the left or the right of everything. And only certain privileged people are able to see it. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the book, and I'm sorry if I'm talking into circles, but
oh, you're good, Jimmy. You're good. Actually, Daily Spawn Archive says, "Hey, Jimmy, has there been some unused ideas from your time on writing Jonah Hex that you plan to use in Deadly Tales?"
Yeah, there are none. Jonah's like a different character.
Yeah.
The great thing about Gunslinger is I have no lack of ideas for the character. With Jonah Hex, if you notice towards the end of the run, Justin and I got a little more linear with the story. We had other characters in the book, and we had Tallulah Black be a part of his life. So we got a little linear with the story. So I didn't have any issues. I mean, don't get me wrong. I could have wrote Jonah Hex for another 10 years. No problem, right? There was no lack of stories. But with Gunslinger, it's not as open world, and yet it's 10 times bigger world. Because I can get into the fantastic with this. With Jonah Hex, I never wanted to do anything where it was supernatural or superpowers or like that terrible movie where he digs people up and asks them directions, it's like I never wanted to do anything like that because I felt Jonah was just a guy that got in a lot of bad circumstances and he was trying to make the best of his life until he was gone. And it's where the movie failed, because a guy that's a hunter and a tracker and that's all he does has to dig up dead people to find out which direction somebody went. I watched that in the movie and I was like, these guys never read a Jonah Hex comic. They all said they did, but they never read one. So no, but I have, if they asked me tomorrow to do a new Jonah Hex series, I would. And I have those stories. I know exactly what I would do because I know exactly where I left them. And it was Darwin Cook that did that last issue. So Darwin and I discussed what the next day would look like, and we're both laughing. And he says, obviously he's not around to do it, but he wanted to do that. He wanted to say, if you do another one, I know what the next day is. And I was like, yeah, me too, but we'll see. That never happened now. But
So, is there any chance that this version of the Gunslinger is going to run into Henry Simmons?
That would be a question I had for the big man.
Okay.
I'd have to talk to Todd, I will say never say never say never with anything in this universe. But I don't have there's no plans for it.
Okay. No, I was just curious because he was in the Jeremy Winston version. They crossed paths, but I just wasn't sure if it was going to be incorporated in here.
Yeah, this will make, like I said, this will all start making more sense as we go. It's definitely, look, I thought the first issue was too much of an information dump, but I realized reading it cold, I was like, okay, no, this is a lot of mystery going on here.
No, you left it like I love how open you left it. You give very little detail, but enough for at least us Spawn fans to know what's going on and be able to follow it.
Yeah, and that was important to me because I didn't want to alienate the people that love this character at the same time. I didn't want to be the guy that comes in and said, "Oh, you ruined them."
No, you didn't.
I definitely don't want to be that guy. The minute I feel I don't know what I'm doing, I call up Todd and say, what should I be doing here? I'm glad you're liking it though, but I think you're going to be a lot happier with the second issue. Like, I really think the second issue's a better issue, if that makes any sense. Because I felt like I had so many things to check off in the first issue, and then the second one I got to kind of just dig into the story a little bit,
I said, I'll be honest. Like the first time I read it, I thought, okay, we're going back in time. We're going to see Jeremy Winston's origin story. So as I'm reading, I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
But then I realized after I read it and I read it again, I'm like, oh, okay. All right. I got it. And, I really enjoyed it, but I was just a little thrown off. So
it's okay. Hey, can I take a break for like a couple of minutes? You guys talk. I'll be right back.
Yeah, absolutely, Jimmy.
I'm just going to answer Amanda. I'll be right back. Okay.
Yeah. Amanda calls, you answer, man. If my wife comes in, I'll be answering her too.
So I guess to recap, and Mark, you brought some good questions, is that we, from what Jimmy's telling us, we are practically taking a journey to Gunslinger's early origin stories but not our Gunslinger for 173, 174.
Correct. Yes. So
yeah,
to me, from what I can tell, they're retconning the Hobby version of Gunslinger.
Correct.
Because in a way, the Jeremy Winston story was like, it was done. He came back, he took out everybody that was in Bane and then just said, all right, see ya, and went down to hell. So, we just don't hear about him anymore, but there's not much left of his story. This Gunslinger, he's going through and he's avenging, the death of his sister and what happened to his family. So that has more longevity than Jimmy trying to get
short story.
Yeah, several issues out of, okay, well, he killed everybody in Bane. Now he has nothing left to avenge. So, I can kind of see the reasoning behind the change.
would you? So then, you know how they have this? They have so many Star Wars TV shows, so how many Star Wars movies? You know, they always have like this timeline, kind
Mhm.
of like to help people understand where this show takes place. Is it fair to say that this Deadly Tales would be after that 73, 74 story, or before? I'm gonna say it's after.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, I would say after, because here's my thought process. Jeremy, did his thing, and then he just, went back to hell and he stayed there. So then they needed a new gunslinger because Jimmy doesn't actually say in this book what year it is. He doesn't give us like a date as to when it was.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I say the original gunslinger that was 18.
He
I don't
said
remember.
all he said, Mark, right, is just right after the Civil War, right? That's all he really
Yeah,
mentioned.
he did not give like a solid. There's no solid like date in the book as to when this takes place.
Yeah,
Hey.
so got
Sorry
to be
about
like
that, guys.
80
But you're right.
or something like that, right? 1880.
Is that correct, Jimmy?
Hey, Jimmy, no worries.
1 second.
They you don't actually give us like a hard date as to like when this takes place, right?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Yeah, so we thought about that, and we noticed that the other books don't do that either. Like, this is this year or this month or that date.
Mhm.
I do have it in mind, so
Oh,
if there's an
God.
opportunity for me to put nice, very nice. All my guns are modern. I used to have a really good Western one. I think I just have like ones I got from video games and stuff, Or,
Nice.
although this one keeps the guys out of my
Oh,
this one it's a pellet gun, but Amanda uses these for drawing all the time, so I kind of have to do poses like this,
Oh,
and she draws them. They're all fake. They're all just like yours, like that one. Yeah, pew 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 pew. Although this one's cool because it has like all this stuff on it.
Looks like Star Wars.
This is
Yeah, I
as
was gonna
close as
say,
you can get.
Except it's a 357 Magnum, but with like a giant scope on it.
Yeah.
But when you're doing like a comic shot, like it's great.
Yes.
You get I remember all the Clint Eastwood ones. It'd be like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I know that because from 81 to 90, I worked on most of the Clint Eastwood movie posters.
Oh yeah.
It was before I was in comics full time, and I worked for a guy named Bill Gold. And if you look up Bill Gold's name, he's most famous for when he was 19 years old. He designed the Casablanca movie poster.
Really?
That was his first movie poster, and he worked for Clint Eastwood and Malpaso, which was Clint Eastwood's company, for many years. So when I came in, the first movie poster I worked on was Sudden Impact with Clint Eastwood. It was a Dirty Harry movie, and the last one when I was leaving, they were working in advance on Unforgiven, and they hired Bill Sienkiewicz to do a lot of the artwork for that. He didn't do the finished cover, finished poster, but Bill did a ton of drawings because I think at the point they used to use this guy Bob Peak, and he passed away. So they started using guys like Bill Sienkiewicz and everything to do movie posters. This is before computers were really doing all that stuff. As Fish and Pan, Dirty Harry. Yeah, pretty much. Thanks, Douglas.
Yeah.
I'm not as old as Clint though, so
Yeah.
I'm getting there though. I'm getting there.
Are we all, right?
And
Go
and
ahead.
I just wanted to say, Jimmy, it's a pleasure. I know we've been talking for a bit, but I am such a fan from the days of the Big Apple Con. You do the signings, and I go with my friend John and get our stuff signed. You were so gracious to sign everything. This is before CGC days, by the way, guys. This is way before Witness and everything. And people will drop so many comics on front of Jimmy's table, and he will just sign them all.
I never made a dime at those shows. I used to do those. I used to do those shows, and I'd be like, I'd sell like maybe 2 or 3 things off the table. This is before you paid for autographs, right? And I'd sell 2 or 3 off the table, and then I'd be like, okay, it's either steak tonight or pizza, depending on how much I made at that show. But do you remember when Neil Adams used to be at those shows every once in a while?
Yes.
And Neil was the one Neil started the pay the guys to sign an autograph kind of thing. And Neil Adams, my connection with Neil is that Amanda, my wife, her dad was a big time art director in New York, and he used to hire Neil all the time. So it was Continuity Studios. There's a little backwards comic stuff here.
Sure.
And so when Neil came to Tampa, Amanda's dad's like 83, 82, I think. But when Neil was here last, which was a year before he died, we brought Amanda's dad to Tampa, and those two sat and reminisced for like 10 hours together. It was so cool
That's
to
so
see.
cool.
But Neil
Well,
used to yell at me and Amanda saying, "You have to charge for autographs," and we were like, "Well." I used to argue with him. I used to go, "Yeah, but my name's not Neil Adams." I'm like, I said, I get it. I said, you're Neil Adams. You could ask for. I said, and he goes, "Well, how much do you make at these shows?" And I was like, "Nothing." I said, Amanda does sketches, but I always, and this, I always did sketches for free. I would just draw a sketch.
he did,
Yeah,
guys. And
and I just thought, well, this is part of the job, is to go out there and everything. But then it became about, well, it's not fully about money, because we still, I always do the first autograph free at the cons. I figure if you don't have any money, you got one book, that's fine. Get in line, come give it to me free. If you have two books, go take a walk afterwards and then come back and hit me with the second book. If you don't want to pay the whatever couple of bucks it is. But it became I'll tell you why it became very money motivated, because the con people used to pay us once in a while to do the shows. And now what happened was the big shows, the big ones, they don't want to pay us anything. They figure hotel and flight is enough. And we said, okay, but we're losing 4 days. Well, we lose the 3 days or 4 days at a con, and then we lose the traveling day in the front and back of it. And then we have what we call Tuesday's exhaustion day, meaning we're so tired from traveling. On Monday, we go and we're exhausted the next day. And it's funny because the bigger cons got like, oh, well, you know what? We'll pay for you, but you have to kind of do a special class and then draw 100 drawings for people. And I'm like, well, that's not paying for me. That's me actually having to go after hours, meaning I start the con at 10 o'clock and I leave it at 7. And then you want me to do a thing from 8 to 10 where I'm drawing. And I said, I'm not 21 anymore, man. That'll kill me, So cons have changed a little bit, but I will say I miss those golden apps. Those were great shows.
they were.
I have not really changed that much. You still come up to the booth. You can hang out and talk all day with me. I don't care.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
If there's a line of people, I'm just very polite. I'm like, okay, let me take care of these guys, and then we can talk and hang out. I just feel like it's a gift when people are buying my work and they want to bring it to me. That's really sweet, and it's more impressive when they actually read it.
Well,
That's pretty impressive.
you really brought us to me personally as a new fan for Daredevil, because I follow your work prior to Marvel Knights, right?
Right.
I was following your work all that stuff, even Ash as we speak.
Yeah.
That's always bugging you about Ash to bring him back, but that will be a whole different show. And then you morphed into Marvel Knights. You take over Marvel Knights with Joe Quesada, Kevin Smith, and you guys launched Daredevil, and what a run! And I was hooked. And me being a young guy in high school reading that book, it was, to me, was like I still have those issues. So thank you for bringing that, because you made me a Daredevil fan. I still have the hardcover book signed by you, Joe Quesada, and Kevin Smith.
Oh, that's
I
cool.
mean, those were the days. So
I
thank
was
you for that.
before I got on. I was just sketching a little Daredevil sketch.
Look at
Awesome.
that.
Look, on a card.
Nice.
It's funny. And thank you for that. When we got off at Marvel Knights, the Marvel was in Chapter 11. They were going bankrupt, and when they offered it to us, Joe and I sat there and said, let's show them how they should make comics. We were that arrogant, like we were young and
It shows. No,
and
you did it.
arrogant, and we're like, let's show them how they should be making the comics. Now, how ridiculous is that? Looking back on it, I thank God I had that young man bravado where I just was so stupid I thought I could change the world, kind of thing. And when we went into those comics, it was pure energy. We went in, we paid extra money for digital coloring. Nobody was doing that back then. We went in and we went after Kevin Smith because he owed us favors. You know, we shook him down on that one, and even like Punisher with Garth and Steve, those were our buddies, our drinking buddies, and we're like, you have to do this book, you know. And same thing with Inhumans with Jay Lee, and and Black Panther was, that was Mark Texeira and Priest. Texeira was a high school buddy of mine. You know, I went to high school with Tex, so when I got Marvel Knights, I said I'm hiring my buddy from high school. He helped me get into Marvel by doing backgrounds. So it became how I think why it worked was everyone we had working for us felt like we all had to hold each other up and and show off a little bit, I don't get that feeling right now with a lot of comics. I get a feeling right now it's like done by committee, or they read the internet too much and they listen to 5 people, and all of a sudden, or they change everything all the time. I know Power Girl, man, and I spent a good year trying to make Power Girl, me, Justin, and Amanda, trying to make it like figure out everything about her, and then they have a new series and they change her name, and I'm like, it's like they shot themselves in the foot right out of the gate. Like they don't understand. They're not people that are buying comics, because I've been buying comics my whole life. I don't want my main character to be somebody else all the time. I think this is my age showing. I like continuity in my characters. I want them to make sense, and I want to know 5 years from now I can pick it up, and that's, I can figure it out and get on it. But it's a different world, and I'm slowly learning that. But, there's a funny question. There's a funny question there. Yeah. Is there was that foreshadowing? It's oh wait, does this have an Old Western Salon card game issue coming? Ooh. You know what? Not yet.
Maybe now.
I'm gonna tell you a funny story about Jonah Hex. I did 100 and something issues. I only think one of them where he actually was the bounty hunter, where he went after a guy he was trying to catch. I think only one issue did that, and I always used to laugh. I'm like, nobody notices that the stories are so crazy, but they're not really about Jonah Hex taking a piece of paper and going, "This guy's wanted. I get $100. I'm gonna go get him." It's never. So the card game that will happen because it just, there is an issue 9. They're in a salon. They're in a saloon with and there's not a game playing, but there is a guy at the bar beating a kid up. That's kind of, it's actually in a funny way. It's not. It sounds horrible, but it's actually the kids being whatever. Speaking of as a category of Spawn, okay, so why we put the Spawn shirt is because we were huge fans of Todd McFarlane and Spawn. And because we thought our comic was set, Ash was set in the real world with firefighters and stuff, it would make sense somebody loves Spawn, so they would wear a T-shirt that has Spawn on it. So that's why we put Spawn on the T-shirt.
That's cool.
We were big fans of Todd. I mean, we talked about doing a crossover with Spawn, Ash Spawn. It never happened. Whoa. It wound up becoming Ash Azrael was the, it never happened, but we wanted to do, we were big fans of Todd. I mean, there you go. Right there. That team up. I told Todd, I said, if you ever want to do a Jonah Hex Gunslinger, I think I know how to write that one where it makes sense, I think we were fans. Todd was doing, when I was up there, Todd was doing Spider-Man at the time. And then the Image guys came out with all their books. And I thought Spawn was the strongest one out of all the books. I felt like Todd had a handle on the character like nobody else did. And it was my favorite of the titles, So of course we were always like Todd fans. We were always like putting Spawn on covers in the back, in a T-shirt. We never asked. We just did it because if we, what happens when you ask, they could say no, right? Yeah. So we just did it, But
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Also, just circling back to autographs for a second.
Yeah,
I was the one that I'm sure I reached out to you, and I have some books coming your way for you to sign that I plan on giving away on my page.
Oh, okay. Did you send him to Patrick?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I didn't know if he said that he talked to you, so he said to send them to you. And
Okay.
well, two of them are signed by Patrick Reynolds that are in there, but one of them that you both signed is for me. The other one is going to be given away.
When did you send them?
I just sent them Saturday. It says that you received them Wednesday. So Patrick said that you guys had another engagement. You probably wouldn't get them until next week.
Yeah. So we're going to be at OAX, which is in Orlando, the original art convention.
Yeah, that's what
as soon as I get back from that, I will take care of those for you. No problem.
I just want you to put a face to the package. That's me.
Yeah, man. No, absolutely. It really helps me out when that is, because because sometimes he'll give me something and saying, hey, you have to sign this, and that. I don't even know what's behind it. So this is great, and I will take care of it for you in a special way as I can.
Okay, and I'm not big on getting comics signed, but and I'm sorry, I'm an oddball in the bunch. I'm not really a big Western fan,
right?
But I love this book, and I'm like, I have to get it signed. And I also don't get the 1 in 50 usually. I went to my comic shop and I'm like, look, if I buy like enough to get this, I'm like, can I have it? And I was able to get it. So
yeah, they should have just gave it to you. You know that, but
no, they did. But I had to buy enough for them to be able to get this.
Well, it's funny. I bought because I always need them. I bought 100 copies of #1 to have for myself through the store. Yeah. Well, the store sold out, so they needed some copies. So I gave them some copies, but I did get the 2 Chase ones because I bought 100.
Oh, nice.
And I had to remind the store. I said, hey guys, those 2 are mine over there. And I told Thomas, I said, you got to do me a favor. You got to get Todd to sign these for me. So it never ends. It never ends, dude. I'm getting stuff signed by Todd, hopefully, and mailing it to him. And
that's like
everybody's just signing everybody's stuff.
Yeah. Look, I was the guy I was the guy that would get up from my table and get on somebody's line to get a sketch. I'm a comic book collector. I'm a comic book fan and I'm a comic book collector. Not everybody that does what I do is a big collector. They'll have the books that they like and everything, but I am the guy that has like all the other stuff, and I'm looking for some art, and I want to get a page from this book, and I want to get. I told Patrick Reynolds, I said, he did it digitally, and I went, no. And he's like, what? And I like, you have to draw the first issue. He's like, I did it digital. I'm like, no, you have to draw it on paper. I said, it's a #1 Spawn book. Are you kidding me? And I realized that that's my madness.
Yeah. Get one of the prints.
Yeah, the print, that's a beautiful print. And that was such a great piece. And Todd, we did in San Diego. We gave away 100 prints, I think. 2 San Diegos in a row, which was funny because the book still didn't come out, and people were like, when is this thing coming out? And I said, that's up to the boss. I said, he just told me keep writing. So I've just given outlines, and then I kind of knock them out. I try not to dump too much, but I tend to write a 4-part story all at once, or a 2-part story all at once, and then I break it up. But I don't want to get everybody nuts by dumping like 4 more issues when they're still trying to hustle on issue 5 or 6 or 7. But Todd does not like a late book, so that's why he had us working so far in advance.
That's awesome.
And there will be some guest artists down the line that
nice.
I'm writing for exactly that artist. I wrote it.
Ooh.
It's exactly for that person I wrote it for. So it makes more sense. I felt the strength of Jonah Hex was that I know who was going to draw each issue. So I knew what I would get on the phone with them and I'd say, what do you want to draw? And we go down a list and I go, okay, I actually had an issue that Brian Boland did a cover of Jonah Hex. And he didn't read the book. He just drew a cover where Jonah Hex is shaving and there's a nun behind him with a shotgun. and it came with a note that said, your turn. You have to write a story with this scene in it. And that was a lot of fun because we wrote a thing about a nun with a shotgun coming up on Jonah while he was shaving. Like, we worked that into the book, and that was such a bizarro, backwards way of doing a comic, but it also was such a fun challenge at the same time.
Yeah.
And you don't really argue with Brian Boland. You're happy enough to get a Boland cover. I was like, I'll come up with something.
So, is there any chance that, like, as like a side story, or like maybe she gets introduced, but is Dakota going to show up anywhere?
No plans yet.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a character that we're introducing into the book soon. Maybe issue 6 or 7. That's that makes sense to what's going on. We have a lot of time to work those characters in. So
Oh yeah, no, you're
yeah.
fine. I just wondered if she might show up.
Yeah. There's a chance everyone will show up that I could get in there, as long as I get a green light from the boss. He's the boss. He really is the boss. I talk to him. He's funny because he'll read the issue, then he'll call me. And with issue 1, he took out a bunch of the sound effects in the book.
Really?
Yeah, because he said the drawing is so brutal. I hate that sound effects just get in the way over there. He goes, let's take it off, because there's some killings, and there's a couple of shots, and there's a whole fight scene. The fight scene in the cabin that has a lot of sound effects. But it's funny how, like, he'll take a panel like that where he's going in, you hear Thum, because he kicked the door in, but he didn't want the gunshot noises, and that was a decision from Todd. Also, the top panel where these people that guy's getting his face cracked and the other one's getting stabbed.
Yeah.
He's like the art does it, man. He's like, just let that art breathe. And I was like, yeah, man, okay, and it's why in some of it it's like this beautiful starkness to it, like like this kind of stuff. There's this beautiful starkness because I don't want it. He kind of made these choices about the sound effects, and I was like, hell, man, it's his comic, I can do what I will. But I kind of agree when I started seeing it. I was like, oh yeah, I see what he's doing there. It's like, that's so violent. We don't really need the guy going, his face is being ripped off. He wouldn't have time to even make any noise except a little squishing noise when the bullet rips, and the same thing with the second and third issue. There's some violence in it, and he's like, let's let that just be that beautiful spray of red right there. Just let it breathe. And so it's kind of really cool to be able to interact with him and see what he's thinking on it. Because he's definitely approaching it different than the modern one.
Mm-hmm.
The modern one even has the word balloons. They're almost like animated in a way, right? They kind of have that the tail swivels on the panels, and the sound effects like breathe out of there and blow up, and they're part of the art. And this one, he told me, he says he liked this quiet calm in it. He says there's a quiet calm, like when they're in the woods, like this middle panel, and they're in the woods, and the horse is there, and she's talking to him. He's like, it doesn't need. Not everything needs to be said. So let the artwork breathe a little bit. And
that's exactly what I got from those scenes, and that the atmosphere where I was taken to in the first issue.
Yeah.
I live in Colorado, and I've been to Wyoming, middle of nowhere.
Oh yeah.
And you get that colored sky.
Yeah.
And you get the silence, like especially in the winter, that you can hear like wood cracking, like
yeah.
It's
an echoing. It's an echoing.
It is.
I always say when it snows, it's like this like really soundproof room in a weird way, and then when something makes noise, it like echoes. It's beautiful when they capture it in a film, right? When they capture that kind of feeling in a film, and it's hard to get convey that in a comic book, right? Because you were dealing with 2 dimensions, and we don't have a soundtrack, and we don't have all that kind of stuff.
No, I was transported to that for sure.
Oh, good. I'm glad Patrick really killed on it. Let's see. I'm looking at Eric's question. I can tell you guys respond befriending an Undertaker. Hopefully, you have an Undertaker character and it's a medicine man. Yeah, all these things will be. You'll see them all. There's a lot of that happening. There's the cliches of a Western, and I do love cliches because you can bounce with them a little bit. They're kind of fun. Was there any different times? Book before setting on, has it any? We were talking actually about a different Spawn title as well, and because there's a lot of characters. Like they would ask me what I'm interested in, but I kind of felt like this one would be the best one suited for me. Um, there's certain characters other people just shine on. The one thing about as you get older is you realize, it's like I guess it's like casting. That's the right actor for the right play. That's the right writer for the right book. I think it's really important. I think when people are grabbing characters they're just not made for, it really shows real quick. There's a certain thing about it, like when you don't like it, you almost want to say, well, that book doesn't exist to me anymore. Like until somebody else takes it over. I don't know if you guys are that. I'm diehard like that. If it doesn't feel like the character, I don't really want to read it because I don't want it to ruin what I like about the character.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I say no to things that just aren't right for me, and it's funny because when I was doing Harley, when I was offered Harley Quinn, I was like, when they offered it to me, I was like, I didn't need to have a conversation with Amanda. And then the one thing I talked to her, I said, I can't write a character that's like in an abusive relationship all the time.
Yeah.
And so I asked Dan Adio, I said, is there a way can I just have her dump him and move her back to Brooklyn so I can really kind of like reboot the character just a little bit? I said, because it's really boring if he's just beating her up all the time.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's not going to last long anyway, so do whatever you want. And I'm like, okay. And then Amanda had this sentence. She said, well, no girl wears the same outfit twice. Can I change her costume around every once in a while? And he's like, sure, go ahead. It's so funny how like we both tuned in on these things that actually made the character, fresh again. But
quite popular.
Yeah, quite popular.
Pretty famous.
Yeah, I mean, look, I got to meet Margot Robbie 3 times. Okay,
Yeah.
that is like that's my badge. If it was a badge that I could wear that says I met Margot Robbie 3 times, and I went, and one time was at her party. She invited me and Amanda to. I would wear that all day long because she was actually a person that completely lived up to who I thought she was. Like we talked with her. She read all the comics. She talked about Harley, how she saw her. She came up and asking if she did a good job on the character and what notes we would like. And then she was super nice, super sweet, super smart, and had that like movie star glow to her. Like you were around in her presence, and I was like, I'd met so many actors that were like, yeah, they're okay, but she was like the real deal. Like when I met her, I was like, she's like smart and pretty and really does her research, and I just respected her instantly, and I also get why everybody else does. And and you could see it in her work too. I mean, she did not halfway Harley. She
No, she didn't.
She went in there and my only disappointment in the 3 movies Harley Quinn was that none of them was just named Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
And that I could just watch a movie called Harley Quinn, and I always like whenever she was in the Suicide Squad, both movies, I felt like she's stealing the movie in a weird way because I just want to follow her character more. But anyway, back to what we were talking about, right person on right character is really important if you want to have a career in comics. Because if you take on anything and everything, nobody knows you for anything. You're just a guy that's, I've been doing this a long time. And like you were saying, you know me from Marvel Knights, and some people know me from Ash, right? Some people know me from Harley.
Jonah Hex.
Yeah, Jonah Hex, whatever. And you have to have these runs, and you have to have something to the character. Otherwise, you're not really doing the job the right way.
Yes.
I think it was an epiphany I had that I think a lot of people need to have in a way.
Well, Jimmy, now that we're talking about Hollywood, we're talking about past characters, and I know you've been involved with TV shows as well because you had Painkiller Jane become a TV show. So as you're writing Deadly Tales, and this is, again, going from just watching this TV show, which I strongly recommend, American Primeval, which feels like an origin gunslinger story. Do you foresee that this book could potentially have the legs to be that TV show? There's a lot of Spawn fans that like the Gunslinger Spawn. They love the character. They love the setting of the Western. People obviously like these TV shows like Yellowstone, 1893, and so on. I'm reading Deadly Tales, and I'm going to tell you that I'm reading it as if like I think Jimmy this is writing the screenplay for this potential TV show, potential movie. So with that said, do you have a character or a movie star in mind when you're writing this book? Not yet.
So so when I'm writing, I see the place that it's in, and I look at maps. So I'm looking at terrain. I'm looking at where they are. Um, I do a lot of research that you don't see on the page because it's not your problem to worry about. It's mine. Um, if they ever made a Gunslinger movie, they would have to start it in the past, obviously, because if you did Todd's book out of the gate, it doesn't have the same impact. We have to know where the character came from. Um, the reason why westerns are made a lot is because they're cheap. You need a horse. You need some. You go to South Dakota, and you really literally can shoot it anywhere.
Anywhere.
And
Yes.
and because of that, their story, modern and especially modern westerns, they're story driven. So part of the part of maybe why you don't like westerns and somebody else likes them. I'm a city kid, right? So a western for me was science fiction. I grew up in Brooklyn, so the idea of having woods that you didn't know where it went to, or the idea of horses and stuff, was the most abstract thing in the world for me growing up. So I always loved westerns because it was something I couldn't even like a farm and horses and you know and later in life, of course, I learned how to horseback ride. I went to ranches and I experienced it. But if they make a movie or something, they'll probably look at the 60 or 80 issues, whatever we're up to at the time. It's a very positive thing on my part. Thank you.
100 issues, yeah.
You know, and they'll probably pick and choose what they need to do to make an audience that never read it understand it. The thing about TV is if Todd makes that Spawn movie comes out, right? And if it does well, they're jumping into everything else, right?
Oh yeah.
And my thing is, I think Gunslinger as it is would make a better TV series, like an 10 episode series.
For sure.
I don't think it's a Crow type movie where there's the whole story. I think the fun of this character is getting to see him turn into the Gunslinger. Because right now in my book, he's wearing the clothing, but he's definitely not the character, not for a bit, and he has to learn to be that character. Now that he's been through a bunch of stuff. We'll see why he got chosen, but a lot of this is about building the character. So I think something like that, a TV series would be awesome. I think
I'll be the one to say it.
The fun part would be pulling off the hat and the collars, because they're so abstract. The hat is so giant. I think I asked Todd at one point if he reaches into his hat, is there stuff in there? Is it another dimension like Felix the Cat? And
He's supposed to keep,
what's that?
he keeps like a big hunting knife in his hat. It's supposed to have knives in there.
Yes, and Gunslinger has one knife in particular on him in my book, right? In my series. And that's a reason for that. But it's funny because Todd and I had this conversation 2 weeks ago. He called me up and he's like, so let's talk about his clothing. And let's talk about his hat.
Oh, we can't see.
And Todd gave me this idea that I think it's in issue 9 or 10 where somebody else grabs his hat, and that's all I want to tell you. It's kind of fun. But I realized that Todd's got all this information he's sitting on, and I'm just like, so I think anything that busy or complicated, I think would make a great TV series, like a series, I love that about modern day TV. It's that we can watch an 8 episode show and then still be so pulled into that world. And I think the bleakness of Patrick's artwork is made. I mean, I tell him in my script, I say, make this panel widescreen. I want to see it like a movie. I want to see the mountains. I want to see the foreground and the background. Or give me this. I need snow on the ground, and it's got to look quiet. And I know it's like a ridiculous thing to write in a script, but but Patrick totally understands what I'm telling him. And I think I gave him a list of movies to watch too before he started the job. Because I said,
Well, I'll tell you guys. I'll be the first one to say it. I think Deadly Tales could easily set the groundwork for what maybe down 5 years, 6 years, whatever. And there's a TV show, and it definitely has everything that TV producers would be looking for as far as a story and a setting so far. So
yeah, well, thank you.
I read it with that.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, look, every it's gonna. The beauty of what we do in comic books is everyone reads the same thing, and yet they take something different from it. And there is nothing more fun than discussing with other people the comics, because we all because we bring stuff into it, right? I'm bringing in my life into some of the stuff. There's stuff in these books, and a couple of issues later, that I experienced. When I was a kid, I went to and this is we're talking about now because I'm older than all you guys. So, I went to this county fair, upstate New York, and they had a freak show there, and it was off the main where the main fair was, and you had to kind of be like, it was away from everything because it really did have crazy weird shit in it, and some of it inspired a part of one of the stories. But it's like that kind of stuff. If you live your life, you're always going to work something into it. It's not always obvious what it is. I remember when I first wrote Deadpool, I had a guy that fed. He killed these. He was like a mob guy, and he used to throw people in his basement because he flooded out his basement, and he had an alligator in it.
Oh.
And that was based on a guy in Brooklyn that I knew that had an alligator in his basement. Now, he didn't feed it criminals. He didn't feed it guys he killed. But he used to throw raw chicken down there, and the thing would just eat up the raw chicken in 3 seconds. And he had an alligator. He flooded out his basement like around 8 inches of water. And this thing lived down there, and it was big.
That's
And the whole
crazy.
neighborhood knew we had this. And I worked it into a comic, and one guy said to me, "Where did you get that from?" And I said, "I'll give you the guy's address, but he might push you down the stairs if he's short on chicken that day." So I said,
Yes, there it is, guys. It is true. New York has alligators in the sewers.
I do have a gunslinger related question. I just wanted to see if this is still like part of the story, but Gunslinger has always been said to be like the weakest of like all the Hellspawn.
Yes.
So that's why he relies on his guns and his knives, and he was good with them. Well, I guess it's up to you, but he was good with them before. But that's what he relies on. Do we find out why he is the weakest and he doesn't have like the ability to do the things that like Al does or any of the others?
We do. I mean, and this is something Todd tells me all the time, that my gunslinger is the weakest of all.
And that's my draw to him. Like, that's like kind of why like he's my favorite. He's like the underdog. He's the one that nobody bets on, and he still prevails, and he's able to do it just as well as the next guy. So
yeah. And Todd, we know from the modern book that the bullets have certain powers when it's mixed with it. So we know these things, but this gunslinger doesn't know any of that yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Todd told me, he's like, he's not gonna come out of things very well for a long time, and part of it is the manipulation that he's being tested. He's being thrown into these circumstances that he really has to step up to, and there's points where he can't. It's just overwhelming, or he doesn't understand like the world. He doesn't understand the world he's in. Like, it doesn't make sense to him. And then what happens in these circumstances is he's pushed harder to try to live. So he's a character that doesn't feel invincible running into something.
No.
And when he does succeed, he almost looks back at it and goes, how did that happen? Or what? I got lucky, or somebody else is manipulating the situation for me to get me out of this. So that is covered in here, because Todd always reminds me, he's like, make sure he doesn't sit there and figure things out. He's like, what the hell is happening? Issue 2 has a it takes place in a whorehouse, a lot of it, and stuff happens in there, and he's definitely out of his league. What's going on in there, in more ways than one, and we see that in the book. We'll see that in the series. He gets pulled into other people's drama, and he doesn't always. He's not always. He's winging it like they are. So his confidence level is not where the modern day one is. It's definitely not there. He's Douglas says it's nice. Weakest is usually the most dangerous.
Yeah.
He and it's a good quote right there, because he doesn't know he's the weakest. He's just trying to stay. There's fighting and then there's staying alive, right?
Yeah.
Have you guys ever been into a fight where you were losing? It no longer becomes a fight. It becomes trying to stay alive at some point, right? And that's usually when somebody will do something extreme to get out of there or get out of it, because it's the horrible thing in murders where the guy's desperate and he picks up a rock and accidentally kills the person, or they fall and hit. It's the kind of thing where you're gonna snap and something's not gonna go the right way. So this is not a character with confidence and a grip on his destiny. Okay, this is a character that's stumbling through everything and doesn't even know why. And in the first issue, he's driven until he hears that they have the girl. There's a part of him where he's contemplating even like moving forward at that point. The guy mentions that the girl, because remember, before he became Gunslinger, he ran into the girl, husband and the girl. So there's this like feeling like I need to do this. He has it in his, it's built into him. Like I need to save her again now.
Yeah, but then you kill her anyway.
Right. I saved her the first time. I'm kind of responsible for her. Right. And so there's that motivation in there. Now, of course, it doesn't go well.
No, it doesn't. Which I thought was fitting. I mean, I was fine with it. I mean, I didn't want her to die, but the fact that he's like, get behind me, and then he's just like, bam, and like, okay, well, it didn't go well.
You're gonna find with a lot of stuff I write, it's not always satisfying.
Good. I don't like the cookie cutter books that they do all the same tropes and check all the same boxes. I like it, when it's like when the entity or whatever you want to call them comes in and he's looking for the sheriff and he says, you know what, I lied, I'm going to kill you anyway.
Yeah.
I was like, I love that. Just how raw it is and the way that you told the story and
it's dangerous.
Yeah. And when you had the Gunslinger tell him, he says, you're right. He says, I did say I'm not going to kill you. They are. So
right.
I have not read anything else you've written, but I got to say, I love your writing style.
Well, I really enjoy it. Thank you. I know, I'm like, when you write it, I'm there I'm in the room with them. I'm in the woods with him. There's one thing that, in the book, and I realized it was a ton to read, where the two guys are trying to figure out how, if they were him, how would they get in the house to take care of, and it's ridiculous, but it's the kind of conversation I have with my friends. Like when we're talking and I go, well, if I was Batman, here's what I would do. Blah, 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 blah. We talk, and he's just behind them, slowly coming up on them, and just
that part was great. I love that,
and kills them both. Yeah, and I said, and we were laughing because I said it's so much to read, right? I'm laughing because none of the book is like that. There's so much to read, and I said, yeah, but that's what me and my buddies, we talk until we talk because we're nervous. It's like a nervous talk, like we're just like blah 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 blah, and then he's just like, it's every opportunity he needed to sneak up on them behind it. It's not like he's so quiet. It's just that those guys were blabbing. And then again, I'm a big fan of The Outlaw Josie Wales, that movie. If you ever seen it with Clint, if you haven't seen it, I recommend it. If you guys never saw it,
I haven't.
If I did, it was a long time ago.
Okay, I'm going to tell you. Talk about fun and what a gift. There's two movies I'm going to recommend to you guys.
Right. Okay.
One is The Outlaw Josie Wales, It was done by Clint Eastwood. It's probably 1976. Okay. Okay. Watch that. Just enjoy it. I don't want to ruin everything. There's another one that's older, and it's not a Western, it's a World War II movie. But it's I'm telling you, it's called Where Eagles Dare. Okay.
I think I've seen that one.
And that's with Richard Burton, Clint Eastwood. And basically, it's Clint Eastwood's an American explosive expert. Richard Burton's an English spy. And they pose as Nazis to go and infiltrate a castle up in the mountains in Germany. Okay. And just watch those two movies, and everything you want to know about me, you'll get from those two movies.
Okay.
And I'm so excited because the idea that you guys haven't seen them and you're gonna get to sit there and watch them is so exciting for me because they're two great films. They're like two of them. The older one, the Where Eagles Dare, it may come off a little bit corny, but 25 minutes into it, you're gonna be like, I'm all in. You're like in this adventure. Don't interrupt it with phone calls. Just turn off the phone and watch it straight. And then Outlaw Josie Wales is the model for. It's the closest you're ever going to get to Jonah Hex, but it's a new kind of mean. It's a different kind of mean, and it's definitely what a great. And somebody's asking about Wild Wild West. I'm like, don't let me come over there. Don't make me come over there.
That's not on the top of your list, huh, Jimmy?
There's one good scene in Wild Wild West, and it's when the back part of the pajamas on Salma Hayek opens up.
Yeah, exactly.
Your ass cheeks. And that is pretty much the only good scene in that movie. So, but guys, watch those movies. You could do a show where you report back. And we can talk about them because I think one of them's a pure Western, so it's pure hardcore Civil War Western, but it's done in that Clint Eastwood style, right? So it's got that really cool shit about it. And Where Eagles Dare is one of my favorite World War II movies. When I was a kid, I watched it maybe 35 times because I wanted to be with those guys on that adventure. It's an adventure film. It's I don't want to give you any more about it. Just watch it for what it is.
Okay.
But you'll learn more about me than you ever learned about anybody else watching those two films.
Awesome. Well, and there has to be a follow-up conversation, right, Tommy? I mean, like we're only one issue into Deadly Tales, so maybe I don't know, maybe after the third, fourth issue.
Two comes out tomorrow or Wednesday, whenever new comics come out. It comes out right away. Any gold prospect or adventures here, Madre, there will be blood. Yes. Everybody, but I'm not going right to those tropes right away. So just so you guys know, I'm not going right away to that. There's some weird stuff that happens in the thing. Those are all great and they're staples to Westerns, but I'm kind of trying to follow the characters, the way he's making his way across the map, and I'm trying to keep it closer to the terrain and what's happening in that time. And the accessibility of things in that time. So the character, there is some crazy stuff. The circus issues are just as wild and crazy as you think they're going to be. And then there's a town in the future, the town that has a problem that they need him to help with. That's kind of screwed up. And again, it's some of it's based on real stories, which is kind of makes them even weirder. But I mean, I'm very inspired. I used to travel around the West, and every time I went to a town, I would find their local author that would write ghost stories or books about their town, crazy stuff that happened. So I use a lot of that for inspiration because there's nothing like truth is definitely stranger than fiction in a lot of ways. And if you can build on things, I just feel like it grounds the stories that much more. So there's a lot of good stuff coming. Hoping you guys still stick with it.
Yeah.
Oh, I plan to definitely.
We're in for the ride. We're in for the ride, Jimmy, and we're gonna be in.
And it's great to have you guys because if I have any weird questions, I can definitely. Tommy can give me your emails, and I can.
Yeah,
absolutely. I can say, what would you do with this if you had this? Because I definitely need some diehard readers that know more than I do. Because I'm reading it differently than you guys. You guys read it in order as it came out, so you're able to absorb. when I got it, I haven't read the characters. So when I got the gig,
Yeah.
I had to read the books it really quick. And the problem with that is you get basic story, but you're not living in it. You know, I'm trying, as I'm reading it, I'm trying to take notes.
Yeah.
Well,
And
you're starting off great. You
well,
did a
Yes.
great job with this first issue.
oh, thanks. I'm glad you guys like it. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, Jimmy, we want to be super respectful for your time. It's been about an hour and a half. I really appreciate it. But before we let you go, right, we have paper films. You're always busy. You are the Kickstarter king, you and Amanda. You put forth so many amazing, creator-owned, comics out there in the world. I want to just give you a moment to kind of share some of the things that you're working outside of Gunslinger, just so
Sure.
fans can jump into that. You have some amazing titles through paper films.
So my main book, of course, is this beauty right here.
Yes.
So I'm going to push that forever.
Yes.
I'm glad my store sold out and they ordered more, but I was hoping it would sell out everywhere. So I need people to pick it up and read it. And the good part is, issue 2 comes out, your retailer can still get issue 1 for you. So don't think you missed it. So that's the end of that. That's my main thing. I got to be honest. I'm working on 2 other books I can't even talk about. One of them is a company crossover. So it's 2 comic companies that are crossing over.
Whoa.
One of the characters is one I've written before, and the other one I definitely did not ever write before. I'm doing that right now with Amanda. And then I have another short series, 6-issue series I'm doing for a smaller publisher based around cartoon characters you guys might have grown up with. I can't say what that is either. But I just finished issue 3. I'm on issue 3 right now, and it's 6 issues. I'm really terrible. I don't have a lot to. I have a new Painkiller Jane Kickstarter starting in February.
Nice.
And it's 2 books, and it's a team up with GI Zombie, which is a character I did at DC. And because the rights ran out, I got all the rights back for the character. So I now I own that character with Justin Gray. So I'm able to put that character in my books. So that's kind of, so it's Painkiller Jane. So it's basically a guy that can't die dealing with a girl who has a problem dying. So it's kind of fun. It's definitely adult material though. This one is I just want to say part of the story I just want to say is Epstein Island in a way. So it's a little crazy. But other than that, I'm just, my thing is I'm on issue 10, 11, and 12 of Deadly Tales. And,
Wow.
You got look, talking to you guys really helps because it gives me a bunch of ideas and gives me it really helps me because I'm in my own, bubble over here. Let's see. I got OAX I'm at next weekend. This coming weekend is Original Art Expo in Orlando. So if you're a comic art fan, it literally is a convention with 60 something artists and like 30 art dealers. And it's really for the diehards that want comic book art. That's all the show is. I get that. And then I have, this is funny. I have a Comic-Con cruise in February.
Those are cool.
That leaves from Tampa and goes down to Mexico. And it's like me and Amanda, it's Adam Hughes is on it. There's a whole bunch of celebrities on it and everything. It's basically a cruise in every way, except the boat is filled with TV people and movie people and comic book people and cosplayers. And there's a themed party every night. It lands in Mexico one day. And it's basically, if you've ever been on a cruise, just add every crazy thing you can to it. Because, I mean, we have a table there. I'm doing some panels on the boat. And then if you're a guest on if you're on the cruise, like if I'm in the bar, you come have a drink and hang out with me.
Yes.
I've done one once. I've done only one once before. I did it years ago. And I spent the whole night with like 20 people that were guests, that were fans, whatever. And I just bought them drinks and we all got trashed in the bar and it was a fun night. It is like, you're on a boat. There's nowhere to hide. So, they only invite certain kind of people, and I actually like people, and I like I love hanging out with people. So I'm a social person all the way through. So the cruise should be fun. That's in the middle of February, which is a good time when it's cold. It's good to go down south. to get away for a couple of days. But that's it. Comic book wise, that's all I got going on.
What about this guy? Maybe someday.
Ash? I was just talking to Joe today, and we always talk about Ash. We have no film for those comics, right? When we did them, they didn't have it like on a disc, or there wasn't a file. You had this flat film, and when we printed the Ash books, they threw them away. So in order for us to reprint the books, we'd have to actually scan every single page and clean it up. One day we will. The good news is, and you'll appreciate this, is Joe and I still have all the original art. We have every page.
That's huge.
Never sold a page of that book. And actually, really quick story. I don't want to take up too much time. Really quick story.
Here we go.
Joe Quesada had he did an Ash pinup, and it had his wife on it, and this is years ago, and I saw it on one of the big auction sites, like one of the big ones,
eBay or something, maybe.
No, like a Heritage or something like that, right?
Sotheby's.
And it was a piece of Ash art, and I saw it on there, and I called Joe, and I said, I thought we were never going to sell this art. And he went and looked at it, and he goes, that shouldn't be on there. That's in my house, and that's in my New Jersey place. Well, long story short, we found out that the house was robbed.
Oh no!
By somebody that was known to him.
Wow.
We got it all back.
Okay.
But
wow,
that's how the crime was solved, because I saw it online and said, I thought he would never sell it. And he goes, yeah, no, I have that at home. And I'm like, no, it's for sale.
This figure's not from Joe's house.
Ty, you want to admit something now?
What's that? No, that's his old place he had.
That's crazy.
Yeah, crazy, right? I mean, the stupidest thing ever to sell is to steal his comic book art, because every artist knows where their pieces are.
Exactly.
And you can't resell them. The minute they pop up, somebody goes, not that. That's mine. That's
yes.
It's just so stupid. But anyway.
Well, it's a great. You probably heard it from all the Ash fans, but it's such a great character. It's so original. It's so New York. Okay, so that's what also it's about the character. It's so New York, and you guys put all your stuff from growing up into that book. So I thought it was very original, very cool.
Thank you. It was we were talking when we were making up the character. We didn't have the internet back then. We didn't have the computer. So we went to the comic shop, and we're like, has there ever been a fireman superhero? And the guy in there says, in Showcase, blah, 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 there was a story about a fireman. I'm like, no, fireman superhero. He goes, no, there's no fireman superhero. And that was the idea, right? Like, and we actually based Ash and the characters on a whole group of guys that we knew. Bobby Gallowitz was the main guy who he's actually the Bobby character in Ash. We based it on a bunch of firefighters we knew, and Joe and I, to do research, we went to the firehouse and hung out with the firemen, and we got all the crazy things, and that's how we wrote the book. We actually put ourselves in a firehouse, and which was crazy as you think it is, and I think years later, Rescue Me did a really good job.
Yes.
Of representing what a firehouse is, but we just wanted to do a superhero that was different, and I thought firemen, man, they're heroes all the time. Like, what about a superhero fireman?
You guys nailed it. I really liked it. I was really young, picking up Ash,
it'll come back one day. It had, maybe
No,
like
cool.
either, whichever one of us dies first, the other one will probably do the comic.
Hopefully before that, Jimmy. Hopefully before.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we got to get it together. Joe's very busy, Joe is a very busy guy. He
started his own publishing too, right? The Amazing Comics. Yeah.
So he's up to his neck in that, and he's got other things going on. When we talk, we're always laughing because we're both always doing like 85 things, and but he definitely has me beat. He has a lot more going on. I want to do less, to be honest with you. So I like doing a little less.
As long as you keep doing Gunslinger, you're fine.
Yeah, that's it. I'm staying. I told Todd I'm going to stay on as long as you want me. So he goes, well, if it keeps selling, we'll keep doing it. And I'm like, okay. So I I have to constantly push it. You know, I have to get those numbers up. You know what I mean? People buy number one. Number two is the tough one, man.
Yeah.
You know, if we can get number two, look, there's nudity in number two. That's why you have to buy it. Okay,
Let's go.
Yeah.
Well, the extra copies that I have that I had to buy from my comic shop, I've been giving them away to people that have not read it. I'm like, here, check this one out.
Thank you. So, I really appreciate that. I do the same thing. I gave a bunch to some people because they're like, I don't read westerns. I'm like, I get it. I said, but here, give this a read, see if you like it. You know, it's bloody and gross. You might like it.
Absolutely. And just so you know, Jimmy, especially these two guys, we all try to give things away to fans and stuff all the time. But I will tell you, Mark and Ty, if you follow Spawnhunter and TinySpawny, they do giveaways constantly, and it's all Spawn related stuff. So when he says that he's sending you something to sign to give away, he truly does try and build that Spawn community. Same with Ty, and they do such a good job, man. It's incredible.
Well, I'm going to intercept that package and make sure it's handled properly. I just got to remember to get it on there. Now, you guys, when you have the Spawnhunter and the TinySpawny, are you guys like on another channel, or are you like on social media with that, or how does that work?
Social media mostly.
Social media?
Instagram. I'm on Twitter, also Spawnhunter.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram.
I'm probably the guy that always bugs you about Ash, but yeah, that's me.
That's okay. You can't bug me. That's not called bugging. That's like lovingly reminding me. You know.
Yeah, I think Jimmy, you're one of the ones that you and like Rob Duenes don't allow people to tag you and things. So I just have to do like hashtag or whatnot.
I thought you can tag me on things.
No, I think it's a setting, Jimmy, that you have to do.
Unless you change it.
On which one is it? Instagram or Twitter?
On Instagram?
Okay,
like I'll try to tag you and things like that was like Gunslinger related, and I would have to do like a hashtag or something to.
I will. I'm older.
No, you're fine.
I'm gonna go into Instagram tonight, and then watch a YouTube video on how I can fix that.
Okay.
I love it.
It's old man thing. Yeah, I have to do that. I have to figure it out. You know.
I just like to give credit where credit's due, and make sure the appropriate people see it. So
I appreciate it. Well, thank you guys. I'm gonna go run and have some dinner.
Yeah, please. I appreciate you being on, Jimmy. I'll reach out to you as we get to maybe issue 3 or 4, and maybe we could do this again just to keep the good word of Deadly Tales. And we'll have these guys on, and I'll send you their email.
I need these guys' help. So
we'll give you a hand, Jimmy.
Let's do it by issue 4 because you can tell me when I'm screwed up.
Sounds good.
All right, sounds good.
Sounds good, man.
All right,
Jimmy,
guys.
thank you for your time. We appreciate you.
Take care, guys.
Thank you, everybody, for joining today. We had a blast, man. Everybody in the comment section. Mark, it was a pleasure, man. I've been following you for a long time. It was the first time we've been able to meet face to face. Everybody that's listening also, in February 20th, I think it is, Mark, we have Erica Schultz on. And by that time, she'll be in issue 11/12. And so we're going to talk Rat City and everything that's been going on this ongoing title, which is going to be a lot of fun. So Mark, hope you could join me. I know Ty, you might be traveling, definitely. But if you're not, we would love to have you for that as well. So, but we want to keep going. Yeah. And then we're going to have Thomas Healy come back again. He's been really busy, but I've been talking to him because, this year they have all kinds of new titles coming out again. One by kind of a legendary writer, Joseph Village, who has been working on Milestone on the DC. He's actually writing, what's it called? Shadow Cabinet right now for DC, which is the old Milestone characters. And if you don't know who they are, Static Shock, Icon, Hardware, incredible characters. He's coming over to do, I think, either 4 or 6 part series for Todd. So I'm trying to get him on as well.
Wow.
So, and he's a legend. I mean, he's been writing since the late 80s. And he's incredible.
Comics.
So, a lot of really cool Spawn stuff coming our way for everybody that loves Spawn. And what better company to do it than the folks in the chat and these two gentlemen here that have more Spawn stuff. I think maybe Todd is the only one that might have more. Maybe
Ty has more than I do. But...
we all have unique stuff, and it's we always support each other. We help each other, and that's the beauty about this community. At least from this community, I can tell you, everybody's been super awesome.
Oh yeah,
Agree. It's an incredible community, and I'm not Spawn only. I like a lot of things, but you two, really, I think, help spread the gospel of Spawn for sure. And man, I'm so happy and proud to have you both on today. And this is not our last time. I'll be in touch.
Anytime.
but
yeah,
I need my issue of Kingsville 3.
All right,
Oh
I got you.
yeah,
Got you.
I got something from it, like one of the gifts. I don't know if it was the standee or something, but yeah, congratulations, Tommy.
Yeah, thank you. It felt good to.
Yeah, I'm glad you were able to
it.
get it funded.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Those are very stressful. For sure. But we made it. Kingsville 3, we're working on it right now. So Dan is, drawing away as we speak. So hopefully it'll be done by February. And as promised, we'll be delivering those in March, if not sooner. But we're going to work really
it's
hard
worth the wait.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And then we'll jump on 4, and that'll be the end of the arc. So
Okay.
And then the action figures.
And then the action figures next. Yeah,
Yes.
I wish. $30,000 just for the mold, not including a commitment of I think the one person that we talked to, 300. So we're talking.
Wow.
Just so everybody knows why independent creators don't create action figures, it's $100,000 commitment just for one figure, because the mold is so expensive, and then you have to commit to buying so much after they make the mold. So there's a reason why there's a Todd McFarlane, and there's a Mattel, and there's a Hasbro, and there's not much after that, to be quite honest. Yeah.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah, it's insane, man. It's an expensive hobby, but like you two, I love it. I'm an out of the box, which I know some of your stuff, Ty, is out of the box, but most of it's in the box. And Mark, I don't know, do you take everything out of the box, or do you keep everything in the box?
No, 95% of my collection is in the box, but if there's something that I really enjoy, then I'll buy 2 of them. So that's why you see some that are out of the box.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mostly keep them in the box.
Yeah.
Same for me. I if I see, like Mark said, if I see something that's super cool, I have to open it. So case in point, this guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yes.
I love it, man. Well, gents, man, I appreciate your time, man. I had a blast. We will do this again.
Yeah.
We got Erica coming up. I'm going to try and get Joseph on, and then we'll get Tom again, or Thomas on again. Okay. I'm going after everybody, man. I've been talking to Brett Booth, so I'm fingers crossed we can get Brett on as well. That would be amazing. Oh yeah, Erica Schultz. I got hers right over here as well. Her little bracelet that she made, and her little thank you letter that she sent. Oh yeah, there it is right there, Mark.
She makes these now too. They're doubles.
Oh, I didn't see the double yet.
Yeah, this is, she just made them recently. This is a double wide.
I like the double wide.
And then she also has a new pattern that she just did. I'm like one of her biggest customers.
Yeah. Oh,
she did this like checkered pattern. And then the
that
one that Ty has there.
The one, the checkered pattern, looks very Rat City themed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks more Rat City. Yeah.
She just did this pattern like the first of the year.
Oh, wow.
But then she has the double. I think she's out on her site right now, because I think every time she puts them up, I grab them. But
so Tommy, just so you know, these bracelets, right? Look at the connection. Mark told me about them, and then I was able to grab one, and from that one I picked up one for you. I said, "Can you please send one to my friend Tommy?" And so you got one now. So we're bracelet buddies.
When the Respawn podcast interviewed her, they mentioned me, saying I keep buying all the bracelets, and Erica says, "How many wrists does this guy have?" And I'm like, "Well, I give them away to people. I give them away to other fans. I'm all about, just like Ty, I'm all about bringing the community together. It's not about making money or how much can I sell this for. It's about,
or how many I have.
Yeah, or it's about sharing and helping out, maybe somebody that doesn't have it, or just trying to bring the community together and grow it.
100%.
I love it. Yeah, well, on that February, I want to say it's February 20th, but I'll send you the information, Mark. I do have an extra copy that I got from Erica of issue number 1 that is signed, so Everybody in
I
the
have
chat will be giving that away too. I have a signed copy from Erica. She was nice enough to send me a couple. I purchased it off the website, and she sent me an extra one to give away. So when I talked to her, she says she's got an hour for us, man. So it'll be fun to kind of talk, right? A year since the very beginning, and what her thoughts are of really developing this character out of nothing, right? This is not a legacy character that we're creating a new story for. This is a brand new. And anybody that was at San Diego Comic-Con, you saw the mold for the new action figure.
Looks super cool.
Fingers crossed we get that sometime this year.
It will, yeah.
Yeah, I think it, you know, you see those rumors for McFarlane Toys. It looks like it might be toward the end of the year, but you never know off of those sites. But they're right more than they're wrong. So I'm hoping that that's true, because the character looks amazing. And as an action figure, it's going to be incredible. So, and I'm really enjoying the series. So, yeah. All right, gents. Well, thank you again, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for everybody in the chat. And until next time, as always, appreciate all of you. Thanks for stopping by, and we will do this again very soon. I actually have Jason Aaron on next live, and then Erica, and then in between there I'll have a bunch of pre-recorded. So if you're a Jason Aaron fan and you're liking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or you're liking Absolute Superman or some of the other stuff, you know, look me up. We got some pretty cool stuff coming. And but anything Spawn related, these are the guys right here we're gonna have on the show, because why would I not have the experts on the show, man? So,
anytime, Tommy.
Appreciate it. Pleasure meeting you, Mark and Ty. As always, my friend. Always enjoy talking to you, and we'll talk to you both later. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one. Sweet guy.